Right. So get ready to like really dive deep today, you guys, because we are tackling industrial society and its future. And before anyone listening jumps to any conclusions about this one, just from like the author, we are really here for the ideas presented, not the person behind them.
Yeah.
So just keep that in mind as we go through this one. Put on your thinking caps.
Definitely.
Because this essay, it's a wild ride, let me tell you,
Yeah.
through technology, freedom, and what it even means to be human when the world is, becoming more and more dominated by machines.
Absolutely. It's a dense read, that's for sure. It was written back in the late 20th century at a time when technology was changing super rapidly.
Yeah.
And I think people were really just starting to grasp how much of an impact it was going to have on our lives, going forward. And what I find fascinating about this author is, they're not just anti-technology. It's not that simple. They see this really nuanced relationship between technology, power, and freedom, individual freedom, which is really what we're going to try to unpack today.
Yeah, speaking of power, I mean, that's one of the things that really jumped out at me in this essay.
Yeah.
The author talks about this thing they call the power process, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they basically argue that as humans, we have this, like, innate need to exert ourselves.
Right.
To struggle, to overcome challenges.
As a challenge.
Yeah, and feel that sense of accomplishment, But their argument is that modern society, the way we live now, it makes it really hard to satisfy that need in a meaningful way.
It's true.
In a way that feels like genuinely fulfilling.
Yeah, and that's where this idea of surrogate activities comes in, right?
Okay.
So he's talking about all the things that we pour our energy into, all these things that might seem fulfilling, at least on the surface, but ultimately leave us feeling kind of empty.
Oh, okay.
Have you ever, found yourself totally engrossed in a hobby or a project, and then you step back and you're like, wait a minute.
Yeah, what am I doing?
What's the point of all this?
Oh, 100%, yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, what are we even doing here?
Like spending hours optimizing, like, a workout routine or something, but then, like, neglecting every other part of my life.
Yeah, exactly.
Or like getting sucked into like the endless scroll.
Like, oh my God, yes.
On social media. Like
the scrolls.
Is that what the author means?
Yeah.
By surrogate activities. Like things that we do to, like, I don't know, feel productive or feel powerful.
Yeah.
But they're not actually addressing that, like, core need for a genuine sense of accomplishment.
Exactly. That's exactly it.
Oh, yeah.
And the author argues that these activities, we could be talking about excessive bodybuilding, obsessive collecting, dedicating yourself to a job that deep down doesn't really resonate with you.
Right.
All of these things can be examples of what they're talking about.
Okay.
They might scratch the surface. They might kind of, address that power process itch on the surface.
Yeah.
But they don't truly satisfy it. And that's a direct result of how, industrial society shapes our lives.
Okay, so then how does this all, like, tie back to freedom?
Yes.
Because that's another big recurring theme in this essay, right?
100%.
This idea of freedom.
Absolutely. The author's definition of freedom is directly tied to this whole power process thing.
Okay.
They argue that what we often perceive as freedom in modern society is actually just like this set of limited choices that are carefully presented to us by the system, as they call it.
So it's like we're on this, like, invisible track.
Yes.
And we think we're, like, choosing our own path, but really the options are already laid out.
Exactly.
Okay.
Like we're being guided in a specific direction.
Right, yeah.
The essay argues that true freedom, like a genuine freedom, comes from autonomy, from having the ability to make meaningful decisions that shape your own life and your environment.
Okay.
But the more technologically advanced our world becomes, the more we rely on this interconnected system, And that, according to the author, that's where we start to lose our autonomy. And as a result, we lose our true freedom.
That's a pretty intense thought.
Yeah.
So, like, if we go with that definition,
yeah,
what would the author say are some examples of, like, how we're losing our freedom in this increasingly technological world?
All right.
Okay, so, like, if our modern way of life is, like, chipping away at our autonomy, then what does the author actually propose we, like, do about it? They got to have some kind of solution, right?
Well, the author actually calls for, like, a complete revolution against like the entire industrial technological system.
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah, they argue that, we need to like dismantle the very structures that they believe are eroding our freedom and our autonomy.
Wow, that's a pretty radical solution.
It is radical.
But like, how would that even work in practice?
Right.
I mean, they do acknowledge that technology has led to like some positive advancements, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, they're not totally blind to the benefits that technology has brought,
Right.
But they argue that like the overall trajectory of technological advancement is ultimately leading us towards a future where, individual freedom is increasingly surrendered for the sake of, comfort and convenience and control.
So it's about like finding a balance then, or are they like suggesting we completely abandon like technology and go back to like living off the land?
They're definitely advocating for a simpler way of life, for sure. They see a lot of our modern anxieties and dissatisfactions as stemming from this disconnect from the natural world, and from the rhythms of a more basic existence.
Okay.
And they argue that, in pre-industrial societies, life had this kind of like natural progression of stages, right? Each with its own set of challenges and rewards.
Yeah.
And once those stages were kind of complete, people could then move on to the next one without, this existential angst that they think so many people carry around today.
That's really interesting. You say that they're drawing this connection between technological progress and this feeling of like emptiness.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Or a lack of fulfillment that I think a lot of people, experience today. Like we're constantly like striving for more.
More.
Right. More stuff, more efficiency, more comfort.
Yep.
But it's never enough.
It's never enough
to really fill that like void.
It never fills the void. And they tie this back to the power process.
Yeah.
Remember, humans have this like fundamental need to exert themselves, to struggle and to overcome challenges.
Yeah.
But the author believes that many of the things that used to provide that, that sense of accomplishment.
Right. Like what?
Building things with our own hands, providing for ourselves and our families, connecting with nature. Yeah. All of these things have been kind of streamlined out of our modern existence.
So we're stuck in this like weird in-between space where like
totally.
Our basic needs are, for the most part, like easily met.
Right.
But we've totally lost touch with the activities that like used to give us a sense of purpose and fulfillment.
Exactly. And into that void, right, comes all this surrogate activity, consumerism, obsessive hobbies, the relentless pursuit of entertainment and distraction.
Right.
We're working longer hours, but often not towards goals that we've actually chosen for ourselves.
Right. It's like we're on this like treadmill of progress.
Yes.
But we're not actually getting anywhere meaningful.
That's a great way to put it. The author would say that treadmill is powered by technology. Right. And the more we rely on it, the harder it becomes to step off.
So, like, what's their solution then? How do we actually, like, break free from this technological treadmill?
Well, they offer, like, this multifaceted approach.
Okay.
And it's not easy.
Okay.
It's not for the faint of heart. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
First, they believe we need to, like, raise awareness about the subtle ways in which, this industrial technological system, as they call it, erodes our freedom.
So kind of like what we're doing right now, like breaking down these like complex ideas and helping people to kind of see the bigger picture a little bit.
Yeah, they own that, knowledge is power. And that once people start to really see how the system operates, they'll be more likely to resist it.
Okay, so awareness is like the first step.
It's the first step.
What comes next? Like, they're not just like advocating for just sitting around and thinking about how trapped we are.
No, they're not. They understand that this is like a really complex issue and that there's no like easy solution.
Right.
But they do offer some like concrete steps, that individuals can take to start reclaiming their autonomy.
Like what? Like give us some examples.
All right. Well, they talk about the importance of, reducing our reliance on technology whenever possible.
Okay.
Now, this doesn't necessarily mean giving up like all our modern conveniences, but it does mean like making conscious choices about how and when we use technology.
So like being more mindful about our tech use.
Yes.
Like instead of like automatically reaching for my phone while I'm like waiting for the train or something.
Yeah.
Maybe I could like, I don't know, just be present in the moment.
Be present.
Or, spend some time like reading a book or.
Yes. Or choosing to walk.
Yep.
Or bike to work instead of driving, if that's an option for you. Yeah. Or, cooking a meal from scratch instead of ordering takeout.
Yeah, right.
It's about making these small but deliberate choices.
Okay.
That shift our relationship with technology from one of dependence to one of like conscious engagement.
I can see how that would be like really empowering.
It is empowering.
But it also sounds really challenging.
It is.
Especially in like a world where technology is just, it's so deeply integrated.
It's everywhere.
Into every aspect of our lives.
It's everywhere.
Yeah.
And the author acknowledges that, they don't sugarcoat the challenges here.
Right.
But they also emphasize the importance of like individual action. Okay. They argue that even small acts of resistance can have like this ripple effect, right? They can inspire others to question the status quo and start making changes in their own lives.
So it sounds like it's about like more than just individual choices though, right?
You're right.
Like the author seems to be calling for a complete like overhaul of the whole system.
Yeah, they argue that we need to move away from this like centralized technology-driven model and towards something more decentralized, more community-based.
Okay.
Think like smaller scale technologies that individuals and communities can actually control themselves.
Right.
Rather than these massive interconnected systems that often feel like they're just like totally beyond our grasp.
Right. Okay. So less reliance on like, global supply chains and more focus on like local production, self-sufficiency, that kind of thing.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. I can see how that would like totally align with their ideas about autonomy and freedom.
Totally.
But wouldn't that also mean like giving up a lot of the progress that we've made? I mean, not everyone wants to go back to like living like our ancestors did.
Heck, that's a valid concern.
Yep.
And the author does address it in the essay. They acknowledge that, there would be trade-offs. But they also argue that we've just become so accustomed to equating technological advancement with like progress.
Right.
That we've lost sight of, like what truly matters.
Okay, so like what kinds of things are they talking about?
Things like, genuine human connection.
Okay.
A sense of real community, a deep connection with nature.
Okay.
These are the things that they think ultimately lead to a fulfilling and meaningful life, not just the endless pursuit of the next technological innovation.
It's almost like they're asking us to like redefine what it even means to live a good life.
Yes.
Not just in terms of like, material comfort and convenience, but in a more like holistic sense.
Exactly. They want us to like really examine the values that underpin our current system and ask ourselves, are these values actually serving us?
Okay.
Or are they leading us down this path of,
Yeah.
increasing isolation, disconnection, and ultimately a loss of freedom?
It's definitely a lot to like wrap your head around, for sure. But I have to admit, like, there's a certain appeal to this idea of like simplifying our lives, becoming more self-sufficient, reclaiming some of that autonomy that maybe we've been like slowly surrendering to the system.
I think a lot of people feel that way,
Yeah.
even if they haven't necessarily like articulated it in the same way that this author does.
Right.
And I think that's part of the power of this essay.
Okay.
Even if you don't agree with everything the author says, it forces you to kind of confront some uncomfortable truths about the world we've created and to ask some really like fundamental questions about what kind of future we actually want to build.
So where does that like leave us then? What are we supposed to like do with all this? Like it's easy to feel, I don't know, overwhelmed or even like powerless when you're faced with like the enormity of the issues that they're raising, right?
All right. It's not about having all the answers.
Okay.
But I think the first step is honestly just becoming aware of the dynamics at play here.
Okay.
Once we start to see how our choices, even the small ones, right, contribute to this larger system, then we can start to make different choices.
So it's about like reclaiming our agency.
Yes.
Even in like seemingly small ways.
Exactly.
Okay.
Choosing to spend more time in nature, really connecting with our communities, questioning the messages that we're constantly bombarded with,
Right.
supporting businesses that are actually aligned with our values,
Right.
These are all like small acts of resistance that can add up to something much bigger.
It's about like shifting our focus from like consuming to creating.
Yes.
From being like passive recipients of technology to like being active participants in like shaping the world that we want to live in.
100%.
Wow, this deep dive has like really given me a lot to think about.
Me too. And that's really the goal, right?
Yeah.
To spark conversation, to encourage critical thinking.
Yeah.
And to empower individuals to question the status quo.
Absolutely. This essay, I mean, it might be a tough pill to swallow, but I think sometimes those are the pills that have the like most potent effects.
I agree.
So listeners, as you navigate this like increasingly complex technological landscape,
right,
just, remember the author's words, challenge the assumptions, and most importantly, carve your own path.
Love it.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning,
keep driving deep,
and keep diving deep.